What's up, guys? My name is Ragu and this is Talking. What's up, guys? This is Talking Funny, my podcast I do every week, usually Thursdays, but sometimes special days like tonight. I'm really excited, guys, because my guest tonight, there's so much I could say to introduce this guy. I've met him many years ago, Rajivs Satyal. He has, not only does he do stand-up comedy, but he also gives keynote speeches. He's been around the world doing all kinds of great stuff. I call him an innovator in comedy because he does so many things. So we're going to get started, and we're going to bring him on right now, stand-up comic Rajiv Satyal. Hey, man.
Hey, how's it going, Ragu? Thanks for having me on.
Yo, seriously, thanks for being on. Like, I know you're a busy guy, man. I'm so glad you had time for me. This is so wonderful. I've been following your career for a long time. I met you, I think, like many years ago. I don't even remember when. It was like maybe a show here and there. But I know you. I've read a lot about you online. I like dove into it. I mean, your resume, I don't even have to say it. It's like impressive. But I know you started comedy in the early 90s. You were in a contest and all. But before that, you had a great experience, and I want to talk about that first. Pete Sampras, like, you did comedy for Pete Sampras. Like, how does that happen? Can you take us back to that?
Sure, yeah, it was a crazy story. Again, thanks for having me, and thanks for shifting up your day. I know it's not always easy. I have my, game show that happens, Daisy Chain. It's facebook.com/Daisy Chain every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And normally I would do this with you on a Thursday, but thank you for accommodating me on a Friday. I entered a contest in 1998, and after that, I didn't really jump into comedy in earnest until 2005. But I ended up doing stand-up for Pete Sampras, who was then the number one tennis player in the world, in August of 98, before I even got on stage for the first time, which was just absolutely mind-blowing.
That is crazy. Like, how'd you end up there? Like, what brought you to that?
Sure. I was a ball boy at the Cincinnati tennis tournament in my hometown in Southwest Ohio.
That's awesome.
And started as a ball boy, moved up to become a supervisor. Then I was working in the player locker room, actually. And I loved Pete Sampras, Andre Agassi, a lot of the guys from that era, Edberg, Becker, Lendl, all the guys on the come up. A lot of the old heads will understand some of those names. Some of the young guys are like, who is he talking about? Who are these old
exactly.
But it was great, man. It was actually a situation where I had to interact with Pete Sampras. Well, I had to have him sign a bunch of shirts for Children's Hospital, a charity type of thing. And I pitched him an idea. I just kind of said, what would be great? It was a particularly dreary tournament. Sometimes the tournament's a lot of fun, a lot of sunshine. This time it was raining. A lot of the seeds lost early. So it was pretty bleak. I said, what you should do is you should come out in this Charlie the Tuna Fish mascot outfit. Those guys who come around and they wear the head and they do crazy things. And that was one of the sponsors. And I said, and then you should hit some balls on center court and then take off the head and it's you. And he looked at me kind of like you're looking at me, like, that's not really a great idea. And he didn't say a word. He left the room. And that year, my friend Neal and I were watching ESPN separately at our homes. And there was a ad that came on, and it was somebody, kind of in a San Diego chicken outfit, messing with people on the set of Sports Center, Chris Berman and Dan Patrick and all those guys. And then he goes out to take off his head and take a sip of bottled water. And it's Pete Sampras. And I feel like Kramer and Seinfeld. He stole my idea, Jerry. And Neal calls, I call him, we're just talking like, can you believe this? He's like, now you really have to tell him about, about this idea that he's taken from you. And then I reminded him about it because I don't remember that. But he was really nice about it. And I go, I want to put it in my act. He goes, you're a stand-up comic. I go, well, I'm trying to be. He goes, say something funny. I go, I need my notes. He goes, you're going to have to be a lot faster than that. I go, let me go get my notes, man. I run out, get my notes from a little 10 by 10 room. And I do my act for him, about 15 minutes of it. And after that, every audience was pretty easy.
Wow.
It was pretty crazy.
15
It was a long time.
minutes. That's amazing. It wasn't just like a couple minutes. Like, hey, tell me some jokes.
It was
Wow,
long.
dude.
It's
That's
like
like
15 to 17 minutes. Yeah, it was long.
How did that go? Good. It went well.
I mean, you know, how did it go? He had a great sense of humor. Let's just say that. He was humoring me,
Right.
I think. And he said what a lot of people say at that point, which is you got potential. What else is he going to say, right? It's literally your first time ever.
Right, exactly.
So a lot of fun.
Exactly. You know, so you were starting out and you mentioned that I was reading a bit about you and you mentioned that your friends knew you would have a career before you. Like they kind of had this like inkling, right? When you were doing comedy, you starting out, did you ever think that it would take you to all the places that you've been? I mean, did you have a vision or what was it starting out? What was your mindset?
You know, I did believe that it was always possible that something like this could happen, which is why you go into it, right? So your friends who even start bands, the first question most of their friends ask them is, what are you going to be the next, you know, Imagine Dragons, the next Pearl Jam, the next, you know, the Shirelles, whoever it is, right? And so there's always this feeling of like you're moving up and you're going to do this stuff, even though if you're just doing it on the side. So I knew it was possible, but you know, I have basically seen the world through stand-up comedy. I mean, I've been to all 7 continents, 11 states in India, whatever. And it's a cool way to see the motherland, especially to go to India as a stand-up comic, you know, to get paid to travel to a place you'd already go anyway. That's pretty cool.
Right. That's awesome, man. Yeah, I remember that tour. You hit a bunch of cities through India. Cheers, by the way.
Cheers. There you go.
To you. I'm still having Guinness from St. Patrick's Day.
Well, Punjabis are the Irish of India, so I support that.
Right. Exactly. Right. So yeah, and then you also mentioned that you're a comic that's clean, personal, and Indian. And was that something that was early on, or when did you decide that that's the kind of comic you were going to be?
I think, you know, going up there, I was always surprised that people would use colorful language in front of people they didn't know, right? When you get to know somebody for the first time, you kind of feeling it out. And there was a comic who did a bit about that. It was kind of like you start off and then somebody says, hell of a hot day. And you're like, then the other person's like, damn right. Yeah, this is some crazy shit. And it just kind of goes up from there, right? But you don't just go in with the F-bomb. It's not something you do. And so even saying the word shit, that's something I started saying this year because standards in society evolved. I never said that word publicly, but now it's like, dude, you got to evolve with the times. That's a word that is very PG-13. You could say it on cable TV. You could practically say it on network TV. It's gotten to that point where, you know, but you evolve with the times. It's 2021. It's not 1998 anymore. So standard change. Conversely, there are words that go the other way. I remember the word bitch. We used to say bitch 3-4 times a day, you know, but now it's like if you call someone a bitch, that's a pretty aggressive word now. And that's kind of gone out with the rise of Me Too movement and feminism and women's empowerment and all the things I support. Well, you can't support those things. Or it's hard to support those things. And then, you know, at the same time use the word bitch. It's just not used. You can still say, hey, that's bitching, or it was a bitch of a time or whatever. But addressing a woman with that word is like, whoa, so it's funny how words like shit aren't really that offensive anymore. But a word like bitch is like, ooh. So you got to evolve with the times.
Right. Exactly. And then, so you do comedy, not only people things from your life, you're Indian, you resonate obviously with Indians, but you also connect with all audiences, which is good. Like as an Indian comic, I think that's very important. And did you, when you decided that, how did you decide you were going to connect with all audiences as an Indian?
They always say that which is most personal is most general. And in fact, Pete Sampras, the tennis player, had said, you know, that was an observation he had in that 17 minutes of material or whatever it was. He goes, you don't have any Indian jokes? I go, no. And he goes, you know, that's interesting. And for the first 2 years, I didn't do any Indian jokes at all. And, you know, I think it became a question of, it's not that I was avoiding it. It's just, that's not really the kind of humor to which I'm attracted even now. I don't lean into it. It's just, if it happens, if it comes up that way, if I'm around a lot of Indians, which I am more and more now as an adult than I was as a kid, then those things are going to happen. It's just like going to India after a week or two on stage in India. I start with this stuff. I start with this stuff. Like, I'm not doing it to be funny. It's just, that's how I've been talking during the day. Like, you want some more chai? Like, you know, we also start doing the thing and all that. I don't really even speak Hindi, but still, like, your mannerisms, I adopt the personality of people that are there. So if you're around more white people, black people, whatever, you will take on those characteristics a little bit more. So I think that as I spend more time with Indian people, my act has become browner, and you know, I think it's richer for it.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's wonderful. So you've traveled a lot, and you mentioned before, with one of your highlights in your career, you performed on all 7 continents. And you can say that because you performed in Antarctica. What? Tell me about the audience there. Like, what? I mean, did you have, like, how big was the audience there?
Yeah, it's funny. I went with API, you know, the Indian Doctors Organization. That's you know, they were based in Chicago, or at least this chapter was. And you know, it was a question of being able to hitch a ride with 60 Indian doctors. I thought, this way you're safe, at least, right? If you need pills or if you need treatment, you're with a bunch of people. It feels pretty safe. My parents were very skittish about it. Even I was in my 40s already, but they're still, you're still your parents' child, right? Especially being Desi.
My
mom was like, "You really want Antarctica? Gosh, you always make us worry. Like, this worrying is never going to stop with you. You're so adventurous." And my wife is like, "I'm not going through the Drake Passage, which are the roughest seas in the world." So it's actually pitched literally 30, 40 feet, and we pitched 12. But pitching 12 feet is a lot if you're not used to that. Have you spent time on a ship or a boat?
Have I? I've only been on one cruise in my life. Like, I think, but yeah, it's pretty high.
It's 12 feet's a lot. I mean, you think about shooting baskets, that's 10 feet, right? So 2 feet above that. And so what you have is, imagine you're a point in space, and Daisy is, we love our math. And so imagine you're on this grid, you know, and so, you know, they call it rock and roll because of boats, right? You're rocking. You're doing this, you're rocking, but then you're also rolling. The boat is doing this. And then you're also pitching. So you're going up and down. So if you're a point in space, you're just kind of like doing this. And so we put on something called a scopolamine patch behind. It says it's got to be on a non-hairy part on your body. So being Desi, where else are you going to put it besides behind your ear, right? Even though my head is pretty hairless, it's not totally hairless. And so luckily, I didn't get seasick, but we even had an Indian chef on board. So as I joked, he put the tikka in Antarctica. We had our CTM, we had our chicken masala. We were rolling in style, man. It was a luxury liner.
Wow.
But it's still scary being out there, 600 miles, you know, and when you're 300 miles from South America and Antarctica, you know, we were on the lower level because we roll like that, like Titanic. We were just, although maybe that's not the word you want to use for Macbeth in the theater, but you know, we're at the bottom, kind of looking out. And there are times my roommate Joe, he was my college roommate, left, and I would just be in that room looking out. And Ragu, it's scary, man. You're just like, you're looking out at the ocean, and you're just seeing the ship do this, and it's scary stuff. We went out on the roof of the ship too, and just kind of looked at it, at everything, and just think, gosh, if you fell off, you're dead. I mean, it's just. That's it. It's you're gonna fall into 30-degree water. It's not.
Yeah, they're massive, man. Like, we went on that cruise, and it was a big like liner, and you look down, you're pretty much like, you feel like you're on top of a building. It's,
top of the world.
It actually is pretty scary.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So in your you proposed to your wife at a comedy club, which I think is one of the coolest ways a stand-up comic could ever do it, right? It was a Gotham Comedy Club, right?
It was actually at the Funny Bone in Cincinnati.
The Funny Bone,
Gotham, but in other,
I
had a lot of great experiences. Or I've been fortunate.
It was like before Kevin Nealon. That's what I was reading, that he was closing out the show, and how do you? That's awesome. First of all, and what's your wife like? I mean, she must have been like, of course, surprised, but. Well, how'd that whole thing go?
She was very surprised. You know, I got the idea that morning. I hadn't really, you know, I'd always kind of thought about it'd be cool to propose on stage, but you know, Hersha, my wife, my fiance at the time, or I should say my girlfriend at the time, she had dropped a very subtle hint. You know, she was coming to Cincinnati for the first time to meet my parents. I had just met first, I believe, in Austin. I think that's how it went. And then, it was, because I remember she dropped a very subtle hint. She said something like, "My parents would love if you proposed on this trip." Very subtle, very subtle. And so, being the genius, the insightful genius I am, I picked up on that. I was like, maybe I should propose on this trip. It's like a Jedi mind trick. And then, I got the idea early that morning. I woke my mom up at 4, and I was still up, of course, on California time and being comic on comic time. And I asked my mom, I'm like, what do you think of this idea? I think I'm going to propose when I open for Kevin Neal tonight. My mom says, I think it's wonderful. Of course, she's a Desi mom and her kid is almost 40. I could be like, I'm going to propose in the bathroom. And she's going to say it's a great idea.
That's good. That's awesome, man. But like, so like you call the club and you're just like, hey, by the way, I know Kevin Neal is going to close. Do you think I could propose to my girlfriend before him?
Luckily, Kevin is a good friend. He's been very supportive. And I emailed him that day. He called while I was at lunch with Hersha. So I stepped outside. I was at Bridge Mohan, a great in Cincinnati. And I stepped out to talk to him. And he just goes, are you sure, buddy? Like, I mean, are you sure you're going to get a yes? And I just go, well, if I get a no, it's still really funny, right? And he goes, it is funny. And that's great. And that's all that stuff. And he goes, but you're my friend. And he goes, I just want to be sure. Like, and it was really sweet of him to take the time to actually, write me. And then he wrote me a follow-up email. He's like, here are the things to consider. Like, just remember, you're not marrying a person, you're marrying a family. And, he's a white guy, right? But it's true for it's true for every, I think there are things that we think that are Desi that are universal. I was showing Hersha The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. There could be nothing more white, literally because of the snow too. Something that's 18th century, and Ichabod Crane goes up there, and all of the townspeople want to get him married, especially the older folks. And it's just like a Desi, like, dude, no, communities, man, they want to see their younger people get married. You don't have to be brown. And he had some really great advice. But I asked him, I go, should I do it after your set? Are you going to be able to follow it? And he goes, I'll follow it. Don't worry. I'll follow it. He was very confident. No, he was very supportive.
That's awesome,
it's a great video to check out on YouTube. Right? It's very funny. So
I already checked it out, but everybody should check it out. Seriously, you're right. Definitely check it out. It's awesome. It's an amazing thing to see. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought, wow, what better way for you to do this than, do it this way.
Thank you.
So in your career, so you've done so much besides stand-up. You've given keynote speeches, you've done talk shows, and you're doing this game show now. So at what point in your career would you say that where you decided, hey, I'm going to do more, like I'm going to really take this thing to the next level and start doing shows and, different things? Yeah,
I've always been interested in doing a lot of stuff. I love this job, and being a comedian to me has always been about making as many people laugh as possible and being able to do it in different media, like, being able to tell a joke on stage, be able to do something on screen, do something in a podcast, do something on hosting, design a t-shirt, whatever it is. It's like, I think whatever you do, that t-shirt should be funny, that show should be funny, that podcast should, it should be an interview. I mean, Indians, a lot of comedians, I should say, are philosophers. A lot of our interviews tend to be kind of serious, but I think it's good to have a blend. It's good to have like the deep dive serious stuff, but it's good to keep it light as well. And so I think to me, it's always been, how many different things can you do? And you don't have to do them all at once. But I don't know. I guess I'm just drawn to being able to do a podcast and host and act and do commercials. And I don't know. To me, that's what being a comedian is being able to make people laugh in a variety of settings and not just like a microphone on a stage.
Exactly. And I've heard many times from like bookers and stuff, look, there's so many things in comedy. It's not just stand-up. Like you could do stand-up, but there's so many ways of making money in this industry and like being able to do your art and and I think, that's truly, truly amazing. And you do it well. You've had, I came to one of your shows, the Taking a Stand tour with Taylor Alexander. And that was really genius. You went through the whole music of, from decades and, and so when you do like these one-man shows, you've done like a couple of them, I think. How do you decide like what a show is going to be? Like, for instance, that was music, and I think you did like a kind of like a political one.
Yeah, I've done dating, And then I did music, and then I did politics, and then I did school.
Right.
And those are the 4
Okay,
I've done. 2 on my own, and then 2 with other people, 1 with Taylor. And so, yeah, I mean, to me, I pick a topic and I like to break it down and then have a take on it. So if I go, okay, I'm going to do something on music. I love music. I had a ton of jokes about music. Thought, okay, well, let's pull all this together, get this all together in like one file, so to speak. And then what am I really kind of saying? Because I think what ended up happening with Taking a Stand, what I liked about it is that it was kind of equal parts comedy show, concert, and TED Talk. You know, that's what was funny to me, was being able to take the music and the comedy, but then also elevate it to like, what are these guys really saying? Because otherwise it's a show and that's fun, but they can't take anything home with them. And I've always wanted to give people something where they can take something home with them. And they're like, okay, wow, they talked about this. And that specific show is about, you know, we focused on male created music, but Black males and white males, and looking at, okay, when Black folks have made music and white folks have made music starting basically in 1980 to today, how did it shift? And one big shift that happened is party music really shifted from being white to Black. You know, a lot of 80s rock, you know, like Jump and Van Halen and all that kind of stuff, Bon Jovi, that music died right around Kurt Cobain, where white people all of a sudden got really down and really serious, and Nirvana and Radiohead and all of it got like really, it's very hard to find like a white anthem after 1990. And I was like, that's interesting. And where like Black music, then it was all about like, when you want to party, man, you put on hip hop. You don't put on rock anymore. People don't really.
No, of course not.
You put on hip hop. You put on Puffy. You put on Biggie. Now you put on, you know, the late, you put on Drake. You know, that's the stuff that people get amped to. You know, the idea like, you don't get amped to Imagine Dragons. Like, I like Imagine Dragons, but you don't get amped to them, right? Just in the same way that you do to Drake and Cardi and all the latest hip hop that's out there, Megan Thee Stallion and all that stuff, where you can really get up to it. Well, I guess Cardi would get up to it, because that's the name of the song. But you know what I'm saying? It's like I found that shift very interesting, and we talked about what that meant for society in general, and that to me is very interesting, and that's what comedy can do, because you do that in a funny way. I think that's fun.
Yeah, definitely. And you did it well, and that's why at the beginning I was saying, like, you're an innovator. You know, you like really take it to the next level. You think outside the box. I mean, there's more things you can do with your comedy. And that's very cool that you want the audience to take something, not just laughs and like some jokes, but they actually think about it. Oh, I never thought about it that way. Well, now they probably went back and listened to the music now, and they're like, oh, you know, he's right.
Right.
You know, so I definitely wanted to also talk about the really cool moment where Jerry Seinfeld walks into Gotham Comedy Club, and how much did he do? Like 30, 40 minutes?
I think he did 20 that night. Yeah, he did about 20 minutes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So you got bumped by Jerry Seinfeld, which is like every comic's dream. But you were on the. You just
we all got bumped. Our time got bumped. But he had been dropping in, and so the producer Chris Millhouse had said, "Hey, you know, he's been dropping in on, I think it was a Tuesdays." And and I was in from LA, so that's usually a thing you could say, "Hey, I'm here from LA. Can you put me up this week?" And
exactly.
That works out. You know that in the game, and so. That was kind of cool to be able to do that. And he gave everyone a heads up. And then we asked you, like, hey, can we talk to him? And because some producers and some clubs are a little bit like, hey, we're going to keep him to the side, whatever. And Chris knows I've been in the game a long time. And Chris and I know each other. He goes, you know what to do, man. Like if he's about to go up and whatever, you know, body language. Like, he's like, but yes, of course you can say hi to him. Like, you can. I wouldn't want everyone to, but you know, people who are on the show, yes, I mean, this is a booked show. It was Comedy Juice. It was a show, so they're not going to book any geek off the street. So yeah, I got to talk to him. It was pretty cool. Like he was going up in a few minutes, but I knew he still had about 10 minutes before he went up. You know how it is. You're in your headspace under 5 minutes. Like you don't want to talk to someone there, but I was like, oh, he's got at least 10 minutes before he goes. And so you know, I said, hey, Mr. Seinfeld. And my friend's like, you called him Mr. Seinfeld? Like, well, I don't know him. I would call him Jerry. Awesome, man. You know, like, it's better to say that and then have be like, you can call me Jerry rather than be like, hey, Jack.
You didn't go, hello, Jerry.
Hello. Exactly. Hello.
Yeah, like Uncle Leo.
He'll be like, now he totally gets it. But no, it was good. You can either have me or you can have the voice. But he was cool, man. I just said, I just want to say, you're obviously a big inspiration, but I said, I've been doing transcendental meditation, and part of what got me into it, even though I go, I'm Indian, I go, is your video that I saw on YouTube about how much it's helped you, and you've been doing it for 40 years. And he goes, has it been helpful for you? I go, very helpful. And I just want to really say thanks, man. And just, I know you're about to go up. And he goes, thanks, man. What's your name? And, I told him and all that stuff. And I go, I'm Aziz. I'm sorry. And I'm kidding. I said, no, my name's Rajiv and all that. He goes, no, man. He goes, I really appreciate that.
It's Jerry.
Yeah, I know. I'm Russell Peters, but
it was
fun.
That's so cool, man. And that's awesome that you didn't just ask or say stuff that everybody else is going to say. Like, a number of people going, man, I liked you in Seinfeld. Like, how obvious is that? Like, he gets that. But you went in there, you're like, I saw a video of you about meditation, and I'm trying it. He must have been like, in his
that's when he kind of turned.
Like, wow, man.
He turned into me a little bit more because he was facing, and he kind of went, oh, that's really cool. So I think, when my wife and I met Eddie Murphy, I said, oh, Raw is my favorite all-time comedy special, which it is. But my wife had the presence of mind to say, hey, Eddie, congratulations on the Mark Twain Award, because it had filmed, but it hadn't aired yet. And that's when he opened up to us, because he's heard, oh my gosh, Raw is the greatest thing ever. My wife knew something esoteric. And that's when he goes, oh, thanks, and like Hersha got him to open up because she picked something that's very specific.
That's so cool, man. I love it. You do a lot. I love that you do a lot about politics and social justice. And you did some Zoom shows, and I checked one out recently that was about women, and you had a big panel. And when did and so I guess my question is, before I get into all that, but Zoom, when the pandemic hit, you were a pioneer of virtual shows. And I want to say that because I think you had a virtual show before anything blew up in the virtual scene. And you were like on 3 different devices. You had it all set up. I'm like, this guy, man, we just hit the pandemic, this thing, and he's already the first one out there. So were you, when you, as soon as like you knew, like, okay, things are going to be virtual, was that when like your head was in gear? You're like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, I always wanted to be first, like that's the 7 continents thing or whatever. Even in class, starting probably even in 3rd grade, I always wanted to present first. And I think the reason I wanted to go first, probably honestly, is because the bar is lower, right? It's like, I think it probably originally stemmed from insecurity, which is like, well, there's no basis for comparison. I'll go first. I know nobody wants to go first. I'll take the bullet.
That's so true.
Right? It's like, I don't want to follow someone who kills it. It's like, no, let me go first. And, I'll just do it now. But then, I got good at it, and I don't think people wanted to follow me in class because my presentations were obviously good, considering that's what I do. I never really found it hard to speak in front of people. But I think that's where I kind of got it from. But yeah, I think with the Zoom stuff, I jumped on it with virtual dance parties, virtual comedy shows. But then I stepped away from it only, like I do paid ones and I still do them, but it became exhausting, as you know, because it's like, even as an actor, one thing they teach you as an actor is you don't have to act for the camera. The camera sees everything. The camera picks up everything.
Right.
So you don't have to like mug for the camera. And some of the worst actors you see are doing that, and they're indicating, and really you're supposed to just be. And you can see that even in people's headshots. I mean, the worst ones where they're posing and they're kind of like, you're like, okay, can you just relax, just be yourself? And then they're the ones where they're acting. So it's a little better in posing, but they're acting, and they're like, and you're like, okay, but you're still like, can you just be, just be, just stop talking for a second, look at the camera and just be a person. And I think that's what people respond to, and they see it in your eyes, like, oh, you're just someone who is just, you're just being, you're called a human being, not a human doing, as I say. So I think that was a lot of it, was just being able to do that. But I think for Zoom and WebEx and all this, we give so much of ourselves to the camera that Zoom fatigue is real. It's very hard. And so I got to the point where I'm like, I'm not going to do these open mic kind of Zooms anymore, only because, it was great to kind of be one of the first to do it, but it's really exhausting to do, as you know.
I'm sure. And since then you did a bunch of stuff. And what was your process through like these shows, like to connecting with people? Obviously you can't go, and for a while you couldn't go and meet people. You couldn't, so it's pretty much all from home, right? Like you're just like making phone calls. And take us through that process. Like, how do you set up shows and all?
Even now, you mean like how do I set up shows during the pandemic?
When it was yeah, like when you're doing like these Zoom shows and you're not just doing like these small shows, you're connecting with people on different levels. Like for instance, you just did that very political show where you had people on the panel that represent, the representatives and so what was that whole process?
Yeah,
like for you?
and I think also you're referring to the one I did, the She Suite Summit. It was last exactly a week ago.
Exactly.
And it was super fun. It was 600 women, and I was one of the few men on stage, and had a few keynote speakers that were male, etc. But it was it was a lot of fun to do. That you are performing for a lot of people. It's great if you can have at least a couple people, even if they're on mute. I don't need to hear the laughter, but it's better to see some faces, right? So otherwise, you're doing it literally into a camera the whole time, and you have the sense of timing is hard. So that's what's difficult about it. It's never going to be, to me, as fun as doing it in person when you can actually feel people. I'm more of a live performer anyway, but. Yeah, I mean, it's people are people. They need a laugh. They still need that in their lives, and comedy still translates very well over the computer. Which I have friends with a number of singers, and I love what they do, but it's hard because not everybody has the same internet connection. And if it kind of does that thing, it's almost like auto-tune, but in a bad way. It's like auto-tuning you out. And dancing can work, but again, the bandwidth gets a little bit tricky. So for people who have Ethernet and great Wi-Fi, it's amazing. But stand-up comedy, it's funny because I remember I was on a call with my friend Andy, and I could hear every other word. For some reason, our cell connection was not good, but I still understood everything he was saying because we fill it in our minds. That unless it's going to happen, literally ache dumb on your punchline, then that's bad. But what you do is you learn to slow down your punchline, and you make sure that they can really hear the word. So if your punchline is pineapple, you don't just say pineapple, you go pineapple, right? Am I right about pineapples? So if they missed it the first time, they can catch it the second time, because the whole point was building up to this joke. And if they missed the key word, well, then they missed the whole joke. So there is something that changes in your delivery when you're doing it to Zoom versus if you were to speak that way to a room, they'd be like, why are you being so condescending? Why are you saying pineapple like that? Why don't you talk like a normal person? But getting that down of it it's not easy to put it so it still sounds natural, but people don't.
That's awesome, man. Wow, that's pretty cool. I like that advice. And because I know a lot of comics, they struggle with being on Zoom. There's differing opinions. And what's one big piece of advice you would say for a comic that's doing Zoom shows that will make it better for them to be like, hey, this is something I could do?
I think we can all slow down. I mean, self-included sometimes. I mean, I think that they always say, if you think you're going too slow, slow down. And people are like, you mean too fast? I go, no. Even if you think you're going too slow, slow down. You've never probably in your life seen a speaker that spoke too slow. It doesn't exist. It might be boring. They might be long-winded, but it wasn't because they were slow. You could slow all the way down to like this pace. But as long as what you're saying is interesting, people will stay. And interestingly with that, when you're performing on stage, my director for my political show reminded me, you have a very tight script. He said, stick to the script. Always stick to the script. And if you think you're going to have a like or an you should write that like or in the script. Otherwise, you shouldn't say it. Because it's much easier to listen to somebody who is speaking deliberately, right? Even when I go fast, if I start to say and like, it means I'm going too fast. But it's much easier to listen to someone speak deliberately because if they are doing this, and then blah, and it's very sing-songy, it can lull you right to sleep. So you want to make sure that you're speaking very deliberately, because I always say that that's what dialogue is. Speaking is words. Dialogue is what you remember. So when you play back a conversation, like, what did she say? And you'll say the words. That's probably not what she said in real life. But dialogue in a film is what people remember. It's that. In films, they don't say like and they just get right to the point because they have an hour and a half and they got to wrap it up. Or in a Bollywood movie, they maybe have 2.5 hours, not 4 hours anymore.
Right. Exactly. Wow, man, that's awesome. Thank you for that advice. I think it's gonna, help a lot of people. And you said, some really great things that I don't think a lot of people think about, and no, that's great. So I'm gonna tell you a small story.
Sure.
We're gonna shift gears here. I was in New York City. My aunt and uncle used to live there. My aunt handed me a book and she said, "You should read this." And I read it. And at the end, it just left me with this like feeling. Like it was kind of like not really depressing, but it was like some feeling. I've never had a book give me that before. It's one of my favorite books, Catcher in the Rye. I read that it's one of your favorite books, and I read that, and I was like, "Holy crap!" Like this. I mean, that book, it just got me, like no other. And I know you mentioned that you feel like you're Holden Caulfield sometimes. So I wanted to understand. So how do you feel like Holden Caulfield? Is that anything to do with like your comedy career or just in life in general?
Or maybe because he's Irish and I said the Punjabis are the Irish.
Or maybe that. Yeah, that too.
Maybe that. No, I'm glad to hear you say that. It's funny. My wife and I were in South Africa where her mom was born, and I had a copy of that book with me. And the book is famed for a lot of good reasons and not so good reasons too. So maybe it's not good that
exactly. Yeah.
Her cousins were, I think when John Hinckley Jr. shot Ronald Reagan for Jodie Foster, I think he was reading Catcher in the Rye. I know that Mark David Chapman, who shot John Lennon, was reading Catcher in the Rye.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
When they got him. So it has a lot of maybe not so great connotations, and that's certainly not the way I mean it. But I remember her cousin, I was talking about this book, and then I gifted it to her. I said, "You should read this book," and she read it, and she really loved it. Yeah. I think it's the funniest thing I've ever experienced. And people always go, "You think Catcher in the Rye is funny?" I go, "It is so funny. It's funnier than any movie I've ever seen." And I think there are a lot of funny movies out there. Like, why do you think it's so funny? Like, it's kind of sad and depressing. You don't think you think it's funny? I'm like, his whole point of view is he's so annoyed by people all the time. I think he's the original stand-up comedian. Like, his whole thing is a bit. Like, the whole thing is how off he is at people and how they're phony and how they're not real and how people aren't honest and you can't really take it anymore. And I go, that's exactly what stand-up comics are. And so I'm surprised that more people don't read that book and have it resonate with them, because especially comedians, I think that book was written for stand-up comics. I think that's exactly what it is. I honestly think it is absolutely hilarious.
Yeah. Wow. That's a cool take on it. Like, I think I've never heard that side before. Like, I think because I was reading it, I'm like, and I'm trying to think back, in that book, and I've read it like, I don't know, over 10 times.
I've read it like 30 times.
And and I'm thinking back, I'm like, what parts? I just can't imagine what parts were, funny, but then I kind of get what you mean. His character, like, like stepping kind of out of reality. It's like you're on stage, it's not like when you're out of your life and you're on stage, you have this different, you're funny, you're doing all this. Then when you get off stage, and then reality hits you, and it's, he's in this character.
He is. And I love the part
in his own mind.
I love the part where he says, "Take most people, they're crazy about cars. I'd rather have a horse than a car. A horse is at least human." And I'm like, that's just not, but it's just so well put. Like, what he means. Like, I know a horse isn't human, but it's like take a horse, take a goddamn horse. They're human, for Pete's sake. And you're just like, that's so, oh my gosh, that's so, it's just, no one speaks that way. And it's just, you're right. Why are people so crazy about cards? Why aren't we more interested in like an animal that's alive instead of this piece of machinery? And I don't know. I just think he's a great philosopher. The way he looks at the world. I mean, he ends up in a mental institution, so it's not necessarily the best story, but I don't know. I think
exactly.
You can't find anyone who relates to him. I'm like, God, I wish I were his friend. I wish I would have gotten to him when he was, 18 or 17. I think that he was in that book.
Yeah, and it makes sense what he says, is because, like, when you look at people, you connect more with people who are more human, being more connective rather than mechanical, very like, dry and cut and, not really trying to get to know you, not really trying to be human. We connect with people who are more, have thoughts and like actually engage, and which makes sense. That's awesome, man. Now wow, you've like opened my mind up now, and I'm like, I'm going to read that book again now. I'm definitely going to read it.
It's a great one.
And yeah. You also put out a YouTube video called I Am Indian. It did so well. I just saw it again yesterday. Preeti Zinta, a Bollywood actress, shared it like as like a lot of other. And now when you did that video, so you obviously you had a purpose. You wanted to send a message. Did you ever think that it would blow up to like this kind of a scene?
You always hope that the stuff you're going to do is going to resonate with people, but you never imagine that it's going to be shared by Preeti Zinta and you introduce the Indian Prime Minister in Shanghai and Dubai and all of that stuff. I mean, I think, it led to where I was performing for Lalit Modi in Istanbul. My dad and I, we took a trip to Istanbul and had a great father-son trip out there. It is surreal. And I was talking to Abish Matthew, who's a comic out in Bombay, and I stay with him when I go there. And he's a great guy. He's a talk show host, and he's got a show called Son of Abish, which is one of the best named shows ever. And his name is Abish Matthew, Son of Abish. I love that so much. And he just talked about, when you make one viral video, the video goes viral. When you make two, you go viral. Right. And even though I think I have 12 or 13 videos that have over 100,000 views, I'm still searching for that next I Am Indian, right? That next one. But then a lot of musicians even, right? They drop one debut album and they chase that forever. They're like, how do I make another one of these? And the reality is I thought of something, and I'm not the first person to say this. I thought of it on my own. I read it and I was like, okay, other people have had this thought, which is you have your whole life to make your first album. And then you have the next year to make the second. So which one do you think is going to be better? Probably the first one. Right? Okay. Your whole life. A lot of these artists who make their first album at the age of 18, they've had 18 years to make it. They have 1 year to make the next one. So even though I've had a number of years since I Am Indian, I think it's really hard to replicate what we did there. I mean, very few people will ever have a video go that viral. So to have two, to ask lightning to strike twice, that's, it's not even my video. Awesome. I call it our video. I'm just proud that I was part of it.
Of course. No, that's great. And anybody who hasn't seen it, I Am Indian, that's what it's called, by Rajiv Satyal. It's an amazing video. You mentioned the Prime Minister. You actually opened for Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, for like 17,000 people. Wow. How did that come out? I mean, how did that happen?
It was great. It was, it was a great moment. I think I relaxed and got into it. I mean, I think I did well from the get, but I really relaxed. And I realized this is just like another community event. And when I saw the faces sitting there, I go, they're just more faces. This is a bigger crowd. But,
I was just going to say,
it's in tears. And if you see it, it's like, okay, these are still the same people though, man. Like it's just scaled. It's the same thing you got to do. You have to speak a little slower because the sound is literally taking time before it hits the back walls, right? And then comes back in. So you need to be more deliberate in how you're speaking. And you need to be a little bigger because I'm also so small on a stage, but anybody would be small on that stage from that far away. Right. So you do the best you can. It was a respectful audience because they're there for a prime minister. They're not there to see Slipknot, they're there to see a politician. So I think that's a lot of it was just being able to do it like that, and then it was interesting because years later in San Francisco, when I got introduced as a person who opened for Narendra Modi, it's the only time I never got any applause. And it was San Francisco, very liberal. I think it was Berkeley specifically, and very far left, where it was like, man, this fool open for a fascist. And I'm like, look, guys, A, I didn't know his politics, and B, you still respect the office, right? You still respect the office. You're being asked to open for. It's like, would I perform for Donald Trump? As much as I hated Donald Trump and still hate him, it's still the office of the presidency. A and B, it's you want to purport your vision and your point of view to this audience, right? So yes, I still want to perform for anyone and any stand-up comic, I believe, my opinion, should want to perform for any audience. And you always need to be able to make everybody laugh. Now, that's a little bit of an old philosophy because now things are so segmented, but I still believe that that's what brings us together more than anything else. And if I can stand on a stage in front of 17,000 people and I have a little bit of a left-leaning agenda, but I can get it through with comedy, I owe it. I owe it to myself and I owe it to the cause to move it forward and reach people who are on board or who are not on board.
True.
Not on board.
That's so true. I mean, what a way, you bring people together when you're doing your show, you're doing a set, you're doing it. That's one thing. People all laughing together, feeling good, having a good time. And, I mean, that's great. You had some amazing experiences doing all this. You mentioned that there's 4 things that to make yourself, I think you were saying successful or that you made it, right? You made it. You had a formula. Mm-hmm. And your last one was a big, hairy, audacious goal. Now I want to ask you, do you think, did you make it? Did you reach your hairy, audacious goal?
Yeah, it's a great question, Ragu. And I think that, for people who are not as familiar with that philosophy that I've got, it's, the first level of success is, and I appreciate that follow-up question, because the first level of success for anybody, you could be in politics and marketing and engineering and medicine, in comedy, whatever, it's that you're at least working in that industry, right? They asked Conan O'Brien, what are the keys to success? And he said 2. 1, be kind. 2, go to where they do what you want to do and go do it. So if you want to do tech, go to the Silicon Valley. You want to do politics, go to DC or go to Austin or Columbus or Sacramento. Go to your, capital and get started. That sort of thing. Go there and compete and get involved. And so are you in the industry? And then secondly, do you have the job you want to have? And then third, that big, hairy, audacious goal. And then fourth, you leave the world with something. That's my philosophy. So, look, I've been working as a comic. The second thing is I want to be a talk show host. I made that happen with the Kickstarter where I started interviewing people, whatever. The third one is hosting the Oscars, which is the big, hairy, audacious goal. It's a North Star. Even if I never get there, you move towards it. It'd be great to get there. Finally, you leave the world with something. So I think most artists will work their entire career and never have an I Am Indian. So I think for me to say I haven't made it would be to be not grateful for what I have and to be blessed with saying, look, you did have something that resonated with people. That's what artists want. They make a lot of stuff. They don't know if they made a difference. And so for me to go, no, I haven't, blah, blah, blah. I haven't done late night. I haven't done this. I wasn't on that. I wouldn't get in this show. It's like, dude, you're being very me focused right now. That's very ego driven. You're saying, I haven't done this. I haven't done that. But what about the kids who saw your I Am Indian video? And even though it starts with I, they were inspired. That's what you want as an artist. So if you never host the Oscars, if you never become a talk show host on Netflix or whatever, that's your own thing, man. But you made something that resonated with people. To say you didn't make it is not only disrespectful to yourself, but also it's disrespectful to the people out there who are fans of your work. So you know what? I made something that resonated with people. Yeah, I made it.
Yeah. Wow, man. I love it. And you're going to make so many people feel so much better about, looking back. And I'm serious. Like, seriously, that's such a great thing, like what you just said. And I think, it's so important. Look back to see what you've done. Look at the people who you've spoken to and the people who, probably been impacted. And then you can say, yes, I have made it. I have, I am successful. And that's great. And I just want to, congratulate you on your success that you've had. And I know you've got a lot of great things coming up. You got the game show that I'm going to be on, by the way, April 22nd. I'm so excited. I checked it out and it's very interesting. I'm very intrigued. And everybody has to see this game show. It's called Who's the One, right?
Yeah, it's called Who Knows One is the Jewish version. Our
Who
version
Knows
is
One?
called Basie Chain. So it's just facebook.com/Basie Chain. Okay. Facebook.com/Basie Chain. And you could see Ragu participate on the 22nd of April. It's always Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Cool. And yeah, no, I'm excited. And you've done so many talk shows. And I just want to ask you, what's next for you? What I know you got this game show. Do you have some things you can share that's in the furnace right now that you're
Yeah, absolutely. So the game show is a big thing. I'm really excited to bring the community together, and we've been really about inclusivity and, making sure that we've got, representation, and that word's being thrown around a lot. But what I mean by that is specifically here, like the Desi, we wanted to be sure that we had, first of all, using the word Desi and, just because it's South Asian, but Desi is our word, right? South Asian's a great term, but Desi is our word. We all feel Desi, whether you're from the Maldives or you're from Pakistan or you're from India or you're from Bangladesh, it's like, and Modi was just in Bangladesh, right? So it's this whole idea of just bringing people together, and some of that went well, and some of it, it's still dicey. There's a lot to be sorted out there that I'm not going to get into right now to unpack.
Of course.
But I think right now it's mostly about just trying to bring people together, making sure we had somebody who's Muslim, somebody who's Sikh, somebody, and just ABCD. And I use these terms affectionately, ABCDs and FOBs. Because I think a lot of the time, if you think about it, how many people out there who are ABCDs are friends with FOBs? How many people who are FOBs are friends with ABCDs? Like, I got them in my network. We're friends on Facebook. I know. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in your life, though. Like people that you talk to, that you hang out with and you confide in. And so we made a play early on to make sure that we're inclusive of everybody, making sure someone was born in India, making sure someone grew up, Christian or Muslim, and not just the standard, like Priya Shah from Edison, New Jersey, who went to Temple. It's like, we want that too. Of course, we want, that, of course. But, we want to make sure that we're also being inclusive and stuff. So I think we're excited to have you on the show too, but that's been a big drive for me.
So great. Awesome, man. Thank you for sharing that and for, being on the show. And we have 10 minutes left. So I'm going to go into a final segment. Sure. It's called Ragu's Hot Sauce Seat. Okay. It's a bunch of questions. They're random questions. I want to hear your answers. I asked these for all the guests I've had. And, and I look back and see how people have answered some of these. So, all right. You ready, Rajiv? I'm excited to hear your answers.
Let's do it.
All right. Number one. All right. You ready? Name something you can do with a pencil other than write with it.
With a pencil other than write with it, you can spin it on your finger. So I'm famous for, I don't know if I'm famous. I think I got my record of 72 times in a minute.
72 times in a row. Dude, you never cease to amaze, do you? That's awesome, man. I give up after like one spin, maybe half. I don't know. All right. If there was a movie about you, who would you want playing you?
Ben Kingsley. You know who it would be? Stanley Tucci. I want Stanley Tucci to play me because people say. Okay. Nice. Love it. If you wrote an autobiography, what would it be called? It would be called The Unauthorized Autobiography of Rajiv Satyal.
Nice. That's right. I like it. I would read it. All right. You're on a boat with a nun, a baby, and an old man, but there's only room for 3 of you. So one of them has to go. You got to push them off. They may not make it to shore. I don't know. But the thing here, you don't care about one of them.
I don't care about the baby, and I'll tell you why. So people generally say that you should push the old man off, I'm sure. And the reason is that even if they're not close to shore. But the reason is that I've never understood that is, first of all, it depends how old the old man is. But the baby hasn't touched as many lives as a person who's been around a lot longer. So when a 40-year-old dies or a 50-year-old dies, it affects a lot more people than someone who's been here for like a couple months. So I've never understood the concept of, no, we got to save the baby over someone. I think if the person's 90, that's very different, but I think if the person's still like 60, I don't know where I draw the line, but I've never understood the obsession with saving the baby over the old man. I don't get it. Okay. That's awesome, man. I don't, that's great. I like it. That's a very well thought out answer too. I love it. All right, here we go. If you had to choose between 2 superpowers, invisibility or flying, what would you choose? I think flying has chosen me because at least once a week, I have a dream about flying. I don't care about being invisible. Maybe I would want to be because I feel like I'm so visible a lot of the time, although I've gone through times in my life where I was invisible and I actually enjoyed it. But like a night where we've been out, like when a guy is really funny and just having a better night than I am, just not on stage, just out socially. And people are like, are you threatened by that guy? I'm like, no, I'm taking the night off. This guy's entertaining the table. You have fun. I know I'm funny. People know I'm funny. I do not need to prove it every night of the year. I will enjoy this guy and I will watch him and listen to him. I'm totally cool with that. So no, I don't think I worry about being invisible. I would love to be able to fly. Awesome, man. That's great.
Okay, here we go. You're at a CVS or a Walgreens or whatever. What do you have there? Rite Aid? I think you're in the West
We just
Coast,
discovered, my wife just discovered a Rite Aid that's close to us. She's like, there's a Rite Aid there? Yeah, we usually go to the CVS.
That's nice. So you're at one of these stores. What would you buy to make the cashier really uncomfortable with the items you bought?
Oh, that's interesting. Probably like rat poison and a shovel.
Okay. It just seems like a murder. I don't know. It just seems like, and you're just trying to cover it up. I don't know. There's like a whole ID investigation discovery.
Yeah, just to have her know, what's this guy doing with...
You're going to be on a CCTV.
Yeah, or CSI.
At 3 a.m. in the morning. Oh, my God. All right, you're a big movie buff. This is more personal to you. What's one movie you've watched more than any other movie?
I think still to this day, it's Transformers, the movie, the original one, I think from the early 80s or the mid 80s, because I was obsessed with the Transformers. And I watched it so many times after school. But probably National Lampoon's Vacation. I think I've seen the original Vacation before they go to Wally World in 83. That's my favorite comedy, and I think I've seen that more than any other movie. Yeah.
Here we're here, up and at 'em.
Up and at 'em.
Oh, I love Chevy Chase. I love Chevy Chase.
My all-time favorite comedic actor.
Many times.
He was just in the news. He was in the hospital for quite a while. He had a heart problem.
Really?
He's okay now. Yeah.
What's he in there for?
He had a heart problem, and he was in the hospital for like 5 weeks, some really long amount of time.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I hope he pulls through. No, he's one of my favorites, man. It's hilarious. Last question: Ragu or Prego? What?
Gotta go with Ragu, man. That's your name. Right?
All right, man. Cool.
Ragu is. I forget what their tagline was. Prego. No, Ragu was. It's in there, right? What was Prego?
It's in there.
It's in there. What was Prego's tagline?
It's like thicker and I don't know, something. You know, to be honest, I never paid attention to Prego that much.
That's got to be a rivalry.
Oh, they put a breadstick in there and they said something.
Yeah. But Ragu, I ate Ragu, but it had the X. Yours has the H in it. I think the brand.
Yeah, that's the H, which everybody misses the H.
How do you say your name? Do you say Ragu?
The struggle is real. I now, you know what? Now I've been saying more Ragu like for a long time. Like before, I just didn't. You know, I was just say it's Ragu, but you know, as I got older, I kind of was like, you know, I'm going to say it Ragu. If they can say it Ragu if they want, but I'm going to say Ragu, and I've corrected people enough. Like I can't do it anymore. That's why now I have 8 minutes on my name. So.
It's good to have the bit A and then B. You asked about an upcoming project. We're doing one on the mispronunciation of Kamala Harris. And why do I call it Kamala?
Oh, okay.
So that's the next thing that I'll be dropping probably in the next couple of weeks.
Nice. And you, Rajiv Satyal, people can find you at Funny Indian. That's like your thing, your AKA Funny Indian.
Yeah, I even put that as my name here. I've never done that before, but
they
already know my name, and you already have Talking Funny with Rajiv Satyal. So I thought, you know what, this would be great. So at Funny Indian on Instagram, that's probably the best way to find me. You can find me on Facebook and Twitter as well.
Cool. That's right, guys. This has been Rajiv Satyal, and there's so much more you can find out about him. Just go to his website. It's rajivsatyal.com. Is that it?
Yes.
Is it?
It's rajivsatyal.com or funnyndian.com. Both of them work.
Okay, cool. So there's 2 sites that lead you.
Yeah, they're both the same site. Funny Indian redirects to Rajiv Satyal.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice. Yeah, you can find out more about him, what he's been up to, and watch the game show. It's called Daisy Chain. It's on Thursdays. I'll be on it April 22nd. And Rajiv, thank you so much, man. Oh, wow. It's been a blast, like getting to know your journey, you know, and everything. So
I had a blast, man.
Thank you, man.
Too. Thank you very much for having me, Ragu. And we look forward to having you on Daisy Chain. Make sure your followers tune in. Check them out. It'll be a lot of fun. Facebook.com/Daisy Chain. It'll be a great time. But thanks for checking me out, and appreciate your insightful questions and the follow-ups. And it was really great hanging out with you. And you're drinking Guinness, is that right?
Yeah, man. I haven't had this in a long time. So
I got. So now people are like, "What's he drinking?" It's the Macallan, but it's in a sake glass. So you know, #Stop Asian Hate. I'm drinking out of a sake glass.
Cheers, buddy. Great to see you again, and good luck on everything coming up. Take care, buddy. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. That was Rajiv Satyal, you guys. Oh my God. It's been a wonderful interview. I mean, it's so great talking to him and learning about his comedy journey. And all the great things he's been doing. Next week we got actually 2 shows. On Wednesday, we have Nate Weatherup. He's a comic I met many years ago when he started stand-up comedy. So tune in next week. More details coming up. But this has been Talking Funny. My name is Ragu Adibatla. You guys have a great night.